If your blood runs orange and blue, this is the pod for you. You're listening to Orange and Blue Bloods, hosted by EJ Stewart and Tommy Beer. Let's get to it, New York.
But let's get to another potential free agent who Knicks fans have had their eye on. And he's an unlikely name, Kristaps Porzingis. He has a chance to opt out of his contract to become an unrestricted free agent this season. And despite how things ended in New York, some have wondered if he would fit well with the Knicks today. But SNY NBA insider Ian Begley says the chances for a KP reunion in New York seem unlikely. Begley writes today, the prospect of bringing Porzingis back to New York on a long-term deal may look good on paper, but it would be a significant commitment for the Knicks, and it doesn't seem like a path they'd go down at this time. Porzingis played 65 games this season for the Wizards. That was the most he had played since his second year with the Knicks, all the way back in, I believe, 2018. He posted a career high in field goal percentage and points per game this year with the Wizards. So, Tommy, you got Ian Begley there putting out there that the fit looks good on paper, at least, but that the Knicks may not be willing to make the significant long-term commitment that would to bring him here. So I'll ask you, are the Knicks wrong to pass up on a KP reunion?
Yeah, so there are a couple questions here. First and foremost, the only way the Knicks can obtain him is via a sign and trade.
Sign and trade, yeah.
Yeah, so he'd have to opt out or sign an extension with this team, and or opt out and then sign and trade.
Or I guess he could technically opt in and then the Knicks could trade for him then.
Sure, yes, that's true. He could opt into the final season, correct? And then he
won an extension after that, but yeah.
Correct. And my assumption is the Knicks wouldn't give up assets if they didn't have an extension. In other words, they wouldn't trade him for a 1-year rental, unless they felt like they were dumping a contract, which the Wizards wouldn't accept. So I don't think I would include RJ or Randall in a deal. So then you're asking yourself, would you do a Mitchell package, Mitchell and somebody, Mitchell and Fournier, Mitchell and a draft pick, something along those lines, kind of a Mitchell Robinson-centric package for Kristaps Porzingis. If you're willing to entertain that, then the question you ask yourself is, okay, am I willing to pay Kristaps Porzingis 25, 30, $35 million a season? And then what's KP's what is KP going to require via an extension? So he has an option for 38.8 is his player. I'm sorry, 33.8 is his player option this season. If he declines it, it's unlikely that he'd get. The max he can get is basically 4 years, 180 million, which is the Wizards would be crazy to pay. I don't think anyone assumes that. I don't even think Porzingis is going to request the max. But is 4 years at averaging 35 million annual salary? Is that something that KP would settle for? Is that something that the Knicks would be comfortable paying? So those are all the questions that kind of pay it. I have hesitancy. I think that it's very interesting. I think KP would be very interested in returning to New York. I think so too. We discussed it on the pod. I don't know if it was December or January or February, sometime in the winter. He's speaking with Knicks reporters. He basically said, "I didn't handle it well." Kind of apologized for the way that it was all handled. I think,
but it's so funny because it's like how many of those same Knicks beat writers talked about how it was all the Knicks' fault and how they handled things, and KP was perfectly fine. He did nothing wrong, and then he's telling those same writers, "Hey, I didn't handle that well. I'm sorry."
Exactly. And everyone was convinced that KP was the next Kareem combined. That said, obviously, let bygones be bygones. You're not going to cut off your nose to spite your face. There's a new regime in place. Again, if he was a free agent, so that's kind of where you start. If he's a free agent, would you sign him for, let's say he wants $35 million a year? I'd be hesitant. If he wanted to settle for 27 to 29, I'm interested. I definitely want to hear from him. But if he's asking for even 33, and I got to give up Mitchell Robinson and a draft pick for the right to pay an injury-prone big man that much money, I'm not saying I'm not gonna dismiss it outright. I think there's a place if he's, again, he needs to play the 5, which is something he wasn't willing to do during his first in New York, which rubbed the front office the wrong way and led to some of the friction. But it seems like he's been content. He understands that he has to play the center now. Not nearly the defender he once was when he came up and could stay in front of guys on the perimeter. Obviously, the biggest concern with committing significant $100+ million to that player is whether he's going to be healthy or not. I think you almost have to assume he's going to miss 20+ games a season. Is he going to be healthy in time for the playoffs? Those are all questions to be asked. Again, I think he for the right price, in the right trade package, I definitely would consider it. Because he'd be foolish not to. He's a guy that is capable of putting up 20, 10, and 3 threes and 2 blocks every single time. I just think would the juice be worth the squeeze? I would be hesitant to kind of go that route.
Yeah, this is another tricky one to me because so much of it I think lies in how much are you paying him? Because I think there's a great chance that he would be the highest paid Knick if the Knicks somehow pulled the deal for him. Given the deal Brunson has, given the deal Randall has, you're talking about the annual money they make, RJ Barrett, the deal he just signed. There's a great chance that he could demand more and could get more in the open market. So I think he should be the highest paid player on the Knicks, given he would be the third option, at best the third option probably. I don't know about that. Sometimes that kind of stuff doesn't matter so much if you're talking about just building the best team, but it is something to consider, especially when you take of part B, which is the health, which is how basically I got to bank on how healthy I think Mitchell Robinson is going to be compared to Kristaps Porzingis. And am I willing to pay Kristaps Porzingis double what Mitchell Robinson is making now, not knowing if it'll be more healthy than Mitchell Robinson?
Right.
So it's a tricky thing. I think the Knicks would, I think, become a borderline great offensive starting lineup if they put Kristaps Porzingis in the starting lineup. I mean, like they would make teams very difficult to match with them because of Porzingis' ability to stretch the floor. He brings you similar vertical alley-oop threat, lob threat player that Mitchell Robinson already is. So if you add to the starting lineup, the Knicks become, I know they were like the third rated offensive rating team in the NBA. A lot of that due to the offensive rebounding. I don't think they would really lose much, despite not getting any of that offensive rebounding from Kristaps Porzingis that you get from Mitch. I think that they would still be a really good offensive team. The question just becomes the health and how reliable can he be given the money I'm paying him, the commitment, which is why I think those words Begley uses, long-term deal and significant commitment, are the words he keeps using. I think that there's something Knicks have probably parsed through in-house, and they've thought, could we bring back Porzingis for just next year and see how it goes? And maybe that's not something he's interested in. And then you say, okay, well, what does a long-term deal look like? And they're looking at those numbers and saying, we can't pay that given A, his health, and also B, what you may give up. Because even beyond Mitch, I mean, what else would Washington want? I mean, if you're talking about just Fournier, then okay, I don't care as much. But I mean, do they want Obi Toppin? Do they want Quentin Grimes? Do they want any of those guys? Like, those are guys I would not trade for Kristaps Porzingis either. I would not packaging them with Mitch. Like, to me, if I'm trading KP, Mitch is the centerpiece of a deal. You're getting scraps after that. If they're trying to get more young players out of the Knicks, then that's where I think you'd walk away. So I think I read this report from Begley and thinking the Knicks they've went through this. I think that they've probably explored it. They probably thought that they also would make an interesting fit there. I think that's probably why Porzingis was saying what he was saying. These teams, like, this stuff is decided like months before things actually happen. It's very rare. It's like the day of a guy says, you know what, I want to go to this team, and then a deal gets signed or a trade happens. This stuff that's all in the works. I think this stuff has been in the works. I think KP was talking about that stuff, and Nick saw what he was saying. Probably talked to his representatives and say, hey, how would this work? Probably talked to Washington and say, what would you want? And they decided that no hard feelings, but I just don't think it's going to work out. And given all of these situations and all the hurdles, I kind of understand that.
So a couple things. A lot of people, and this is something I'm going to harp on during these podcasts all summer. A lot of people have said the Knicks need to improve their three-point shooting. And they're right. Let's make no mistake. Knicks ranked 15th in three-pointers made, one of only 2 teams in the postseason to average less than 10 made three-pointers per game. They ranked 15th out of the 16 teams that qualify for the playoffs. But also keep in mind, the Knicks ranked 3rd in the NBA in offensive efficiency this past season. Right. They were tied with the Sixers, only 2 teams ahead of them in terms of offensive efficiency. They ranked 19th in defensive efficiency. They were, they were behind the Charlotte Hornets. They were just ahead of the Orlando Magic. These are not good teams, and this is where the Knicks, finished the season. 82 game sample size here in terms of defensive efficiency. So I think in trading away your best interior defender is a risky proposition at best. And the other thing in regards to Mitch's contract, really important to point out that he is like Jalen Brunson, has a descending value on his contract. So he made $17 million last year, going to make 15.6 in 2023-24, 14.3 the following season. By 2025-26, the final year of his deal, he's going to make $12.9 million.
That's a mid-level exception.
That's the same level as a mid-level exception for a starting caliber point guard, best offensive rebounder, center, best offensive rebounder in the NBA. That's a valuable contract. And you mentioned twice as much as KP. KP's new contract will be 3 times as much. Let's assume it starts at 30, would be 34 or 35 or 38, whatever, depending on how they structure it. So are you willing to pay 3 times as much for Porzingis when you already have really talented scorers in Brunson and Randall, assuming that you're going to keep that as the core? So for those reasons, again, I think the right place and the right time. I like the idea of bringing back KP. I like the idea of him kind of a resurgence in New York. I didn't like the way it ended. I don't think anyone liked the way it ended. I thought it was really cool the way he was embraced by the Knicks fandom, and everyone really.
Yeah, in Washington, it was shocking in some degree.
Yeah. It was really it was a remarkable. You had that All-Star season. Looked like the sky was the limit. So it was unfortunate the way it played out. As we know now, it worked out in the Knicks' favor. But I unfortunately, just with the way that the roster's constructed, I don't see it. I see it as a clunky fit.
Yeah, that's why I think you got Ian Begley there saying that it's not a path that they go down at this time. The exact wording from Ian Begley. So we'll continue to follow if this KP situation becomes more of a thing. But as of right now, it doesn't sound like that's something that the Knicks are going to explore. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below.
Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest podcast ventures. Links will be in the descriptions. And as always, thanks for watching, and we will see you in our next video.